Welcome to the Latino podcast, where we discuss the intersection of law and our Latino communities with legal, political, and community leaders and visionaries. Let's get started.
Hey, Sean Gomez. Welcome to another episode of the Latino, where we discuss the intersection of law and our Latino communities. We have on lawyers, judges, community leaders, and activists, all talking about this unique intersection of government, law, and our communities. This episode, as always, is brought to you by your sponsor, Gomez Trial Attorneys. Gomez Trial Attorneys is an award-winning national law firm representing consumers who have suffered personal injury, employment harms, product liability harms, class actions, all providing the very highest level of legal services to our clients in both the English and Spanish languages and in a bicultural way. Today we have a very special guest. I'm gonna first introduce my co-host, who is often my co-host on this podcast because she shares some similarities with our special guest today and his wife. And so my co-host today, as she often is our attorney here, Jessica Lujan, who, as relevant here today, grew up on the Texas border in between El Paso and Juarez, coming back and forth, had that kind of national experience growing up from Texas, then went off to law school. And so I thought she would be the perfect person to introduce our guest today. So go ahead, Jessica.
Thanks, John, and welcome, everyone. It's great to be here and super excited for our guest. So, John, do us the honors. Who's our guest today?
So today we have as our guest all the way from San Antonio, Texas, Beto Altamirano, who has been described as really an entrepreneur, as a young leader, a young riser, a young, we'll say genius, who has been involved in both public service, in the tech space, in the application space, went to school at the University of Texas, then matriculated to the Kennedy School of Government with Harvard. So from an early age was demonstrating an interest in public service, combined his very successful business career with acting in public service, has been involved with the Port of San Antonio and other public service endeavors. And so he, I think, has now declared in a very busy competitive race as a candidate for the mayor of San Antonio. As I understand it, that election will take place in May. He has never held an elected seat. So he is, I think, in this day and age, I would say I think that's a good thing, to come in as an outsider, with a history of successfully leading companies and organizations. So Beto, welcome to our podcast.
Thank you, John and Jessica. What an intro, first of all. And it's great to be here in San Diego. Beautiful weather. And what an awesome podcast room. I mean, it has beautiful art. And thank you for hosting me. I appreciate that. I mean, there's so many similarities between San Diego and San Antonio, and I can't wait to get into it.
All right. So I thought it would be perfect for Jessica to talk to you a little bit about your youth and growing up and what that was like, because she has kind of a similar story.
Yeah, I'd love to hear about it. I mean, growing up for me, it was the daily commute from Juarez to El Paso. I know different border towns are different, right?
Yeah.
So they have a lot of similarities, but they also all have their own, specific intricacies. So tell me a little bit about you growing up, your background. What was that like?
Well, first of all, this is a really cool mural. What's the story behind this mural? And look at John with the sleeves rolled up and, ready to go. So the imagery. What's the story behind this mural?
Whew. It has a lot of symbolism and imagery. I mean, we try to do everything. So we have the red tie, clearly, always ready for court. Yeah. His glasses that's what he does, right? When he's out to have children, he puts his glasses, takes them off. puts them back on. And then I think we just try to capture the personality. But other than that, we have, flags from a ton of Latin American countries. We have both Mexican and American, history. We have a little piece of the border wall to symbolize, the border between the United States and Mexico. Everything from Aztec images, Virgen de Guadalupe. You can see we have a picture of a heart over there, like an cactus. So very Southwest. And then we have the Padres Stadium. I mean, they're huge.
There you go.
There you go.
Yeah.
So really, it's just to symbolize the, as this podcast tries to do, the interconnectedness of, the United States and not just Mexico, but, countries, our neighbors, and just how interconnected we are.
Yeah, for those like listening to us, right? I mean, the imagery here is like it's a confluence of experiences, bicultural, binational experiences. Who painted this?
So my dad painted this.
Oh, yeah.
Rolando Luján.
Rolando.
He's actually a deacon here, and I had to move from El Paso, so we grew up in El Paso. He learned art in Italy, and then, just likes painting.
That's nice thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I think this is a good segue to your question about Gruffudd and border. And I asked about this mural because this mural represents two worlds coming together.
Exactly.
Right. And I think in Texas, and I know here in San Diego, you had that experience. Mm-hmm. And growing up in the border in South Texas and Mission, Texas, I think for me, it was such a rich experience. Mm-hmm. I don't remember when I learned English or Spanish. It just happened. Right? Mm-hmm. And the food and the people. But one thing that growing up in a bilingual, bicultural, or binational setting teaches you about is empathy. Yeah. And it's learning about other cultures and knowing that there's many worlds out there. And this intersection of the United States and Mexico is such a unique one. And so I think for me, growing up in South Texas, you have so much complexity in the economy of South Texas. But all of a sudden, you also have big cities like San Antonio, mm-hmm. and you have a border. They call it the Rio Grande Valley. Mm-hmm. And that's where you have Brownsville, McAllen, Mission. And then you have Laredo, one of the largest ports of entry, similar to San Isidro, right? And of course, the Gulf Coast, where you have Corpus Christi. So that region, South Texas, it's so powerful. It has so much magic. But it's until I was older that I learned to appreciate this region.
Yeah.
For me, I think growing up in the border, I love the experience, but there was something to be said about leaving the region for self-discovery, mm-hmm. learning about the rest of the United States. And I think one thing that we should do as people that live in bicultural or binational settings is talk more about what these regions have to offer.
Agree.
And brand it. Mm-hmm. And tell the story. Because sometimes that story is not mainstream.
Right. And when did you leave? Sorry, Frank. Yeah, when did you leave?
Yeah, so I left when I was 18.
Okay.
But I talk about like making the story mainstream because you hear all kinds of policies and ideas that politicians talk about in DC and all that, but they don't really tell the story of what happens on the border, right? And so I left, and when I came back, I was more in love with the region than ever before.
Right, I share that experience. That's why I was curious to know, when did you leave? So I left around the same time, when I was 19, went up to the Midwest for college, and I've been growing up in my little, border town where, again,
that place is beautiful.
It's beautiful. Yeah. It's beautiful. And complex issues seem simple to me, right? You get along, you just know that there's two different sides and you just go about your day every day. So I like that idea of making it mainstream, right? And talking to people about it. And so how is it that you've, taken that on? How do you now promote, where you came from?
Absolutely. So I moved to Austin to go to UT Austin, and then I spent some time in DC. I lived in Europe as well, Barcelona, Amsterdam, but I always kept coming back to South Texas. That's where I'm from. And if I was going to contribute to the development of the region or any region, I wanted to choose a city where I could see myself starting a family, starting a business, building a life. And I chose San Antonio. And I chose San Antonio almost 13 years ago. So it's great for me right now as I'm running for mayor, because part of my narrative is choosing San Antonio first. Sometimes people, we talked about it, leave their cities in pursuance of more opportunity. But sometimes that opportunity is because it's not there, it's not present. And as leaders in a city like San Antonio or in South Texas, El Paso, San Diego, we have to build those opportunities for our youth. And so my narrative is choosing San Antonio for people to build their dreams, their aspirations, build their lives, right? So when I chose San Antonio, I celebrated the region because of its heritage, its identity, and I continue to talk about it. Fast forward today, I founded a nonprofit called Better Futures Institute, and we do two things. One is we get young people into STEM careers through paid internships, and they work around the 311 San Antonio mobile app that we developed. But we also do research on the South Texas Triangle. What is the South Texas Triangle? Is the cities in the South Texas region from San Antonio to Brownsville, Mission, McAllen, Laredo, Corpus Christi. There is so much economic complexity in the region, so many strengths, but it's about connecting the dots and having the cities talk to each other. And that's what we need more of. So what I do today is talk about it openly. We do research on different areas, right? From bioscience all the way to the space economy that is being built in Brownsville.
Yeah.
And we document this through op-eds, which people can look up on social media or the internet with the San Antonio Express News, which is the South Texas Triangle series. We have published over 16 op-eds talking about the region itself. So that's how I celebrate the region. And I'm being intentional because I think there's something to be said about the story of South Texas and how collectively those cities need to work with each other to make it more mainstream, right? So that people can find out about it and maybe celebrate the same way that we natives or locals of the region do.
Very impressive. You know, you talk about connecting the dots between the cities. How do you keep your connections between people, right? So I'm sure that there were people, you know, growing up who were influential in your life. I mean, do you keep in touch with them? How do you make sure that you maintain those relationships? Because at least for me, mentorship, connections, people, you know, it's been one of the most important aspects.
Absolutely. I mean, so many people have helped me, right? And for those listening to us, just think about that moment where someone opened the door, whether it was a job opportunity, it was an internship, you know, it was an introduction to meet someone for coffee, right? I think I always strive for this idea that pay it forward. So many people have helped me, and that's why I extend help to others. Yeah. But in the process of supporting my community, it doesn't matter what age they are, and opening doors for others, you have to stay in touch. And it's so hard. I was just talking so I'm here with a couple of friends, Raul O'Malley, who's the chairman and COO of Welcome Tech, which is an impressive technology company. But he also led Maldiv as the chair of Maldiv for a couple of years. He knows a thing or two about leadership, so I consider him a friend and mentor. Another friend and mentor is Luis Carreño, who is a consultant, right, for international business and has represented a lot of international brands, especially when it comes to like trade and border policies. And both of them are friends and mentors. But I was talking to Raul about how do you stay in touch with people? Like, for example, we were in LA yesterday, and immediately before arriving to LA, I started texting a few friends that, by the way, John, like I hadn't talked to them in a long time.
Yeah, sure.
You know, 7 years, but I was texting them because they were friends. And at some point, you know, we share experiences, etc. So why not reconnect?
Right.
Even if it's out of the blue. Right. And we ended up grabbing lunch and grabbing coffee and catching up. And they even donated to my campaign. There you go. And so, very good. And so, you know, but my point is this, is that when I think of someone, this is one of my tips, right? When I think of someone, it doesn't matter what time of the day it is or what day it is, I text them. Hey, thinking of you, you know, love you, my friend, whatever. You know, just a simple text. And it goes a long way. Instead of, because I mean, how many times do you think of people? Many times, right?
All the time.
Random people in your lives, right? I mean, maybe a high school friend, a college friend, maybe a business acquaintance. But And you don't text them, you don't call them because it's maybe a Saturday at 7 a.m. or maybe it's a Thursday at 7 p.m. But you should just text them, and it goes a long way. And it's just a simple text just to reconnect with people. So I do that all the time. And people know that, they're going to receive maybe a random text one day from me, right? But it's just that I like to stay in touch with people. I think I also leverage social media, right? So for those that are growing in their careers, that are listening to this podcast, or that are looking to reskill and upskill or find new adventures in new industries, the number one thing for me in terms of networking is also leveraging the power of social media, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and stay in touch with people, right? And also talk about your journey, right? I think what you both are doing here, you, Jessica and John, is it's quite impressive. Having a podcast that engages with people, you tell stories, but it's also a time for you to reflect on your journeys, right, with your guests, and talk about the services that you offer as well. So I think that's how you stay.
That's good show, guys. I love that. I did that the other day. I was like, "Hey, John,
I know you did." And you just inspire me. I just texted our friend Sam Licardo.
There you go.
Who is a friend of mine, turned out mayor of San Jose. No,
impressive leader. I'm a big fan of his. And yeah, when I started my tech company, City Flag at the time, then became Irys, our go-to market product was a 311 mobile application. And so I read all about Sam Licardo and the impressive work that he was doing at San Jose. It's great to see how the civic tech world and the gov tech world have become very influential in our day-to-day activities in every city across the world. What do I mean by that? Technology is largely utilized in cities today. But there was a time where you had pioneers like Sam and others that were talking about it, how they would become our everyday tools to manage, to operate, to influence outcomes in a city government. Today, it's mainstream. Every city relies on technology. But when we launched our tool, I remember, I went to law school, by the way, John. I dropped out. I was there for one semester.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. St. Mary's Law School.
Very good. Where your wife went.
That's right. Yes. Ana Fernandez, yeah, my wife. Talking about that, why we started, and I'll go back to the 311 app in a second. Why we started the Better Futures Institute is that you don't have a lot of Latinos in South Texas venturing into tech or STEM. And that's because historically, our communities, it's something that we don't engage with, right? And that we need to change. So when I told my parents that I wanted to be a tech entrepreneur, they were like, "Mijito, ¿de qué estás hablando?" Like Bill Gates and stuff, And I think that's something that we need to fix in a way, that narrative that Latinos cannot go into these careers. And so that's why with Better Futures, we're trying to encourage young people and their parents to feel comfortable with letting their children go into these careers. Because I went into law school, John, because I think that's what I needed to do, right? And my parents wanted me to have a good life ahead of me. And so being an accountant, being a lawyer, a doctor is what Latinos do, or you aspire to that. But tech, come on, right? When I told my dad, he was, "Mijito, ¿de qué estás hablando?" And so going back to the 311 app, I actually told my dad, "Me voy a salir de law school para desarrollar una app donde vas a reportar baches. You got to report potholes." He's like, "You're nuts, man." But that was our go-to market product. I was dreaming of that. I was dreaming of creating efficiencies in how people communicated with their local government. And we did. We launched that 311 San Antonio mobile app, largely influenced and inspired by many leaders across the U.S. that were already introducing technology into city governments like Sam Licardo and many others. And that became a success. Thousands of people utilize that tool today in San Antonio to report everything from a missing stop sign to lights to flooding to asking for a business permit. And we have facilitated people's lives. So talk about the power of technology leveraged in a good way, right, to create social impact in cities.
You have such a, I'll say, varied and layered, background and history. Like you said, like very few Latinos from the border are going into tech and, bringing these ventures to the forefront and being involved the way you are. How do you feel like your skill set, background, and interest make you the best candidate to become the next mayor of San Antonio?
Yeah, so I think my unique value proposition today is that I'm not a sitting council member or a career politician. I'm an entrepreneur that has leveraged the use of technology to create an impact in the city that I love. And I scale that organization from 3 people to almost 100 employees today, high-paying jobs and stuff. And we're not just doing city technology or data analytics anymore. Now we're doing cybersecurity. So we are protecting our systems from threats from other countries and the U.S. Air Force, systems like penetration testing and desktop security and application platform interface development and protection. And so I say all of that, right? Because I think today, in a leadership role as mayor of San Antonio, you need those types of skills. The skills of putting the right teams together, going after the right projects, of setting a vision that might be popular or unpopular, depending on the setting, but committing to that vision and setting the tone, coalition building, consensus building, engaging your other council members, listening, leading from behind, and being a servant leader. Those are the unique skills and my unique value proposition that I bring into the mix of about 20 candidates that are running, John and Jessica. And while it is a challenging race because of the dynamics of so many people running, people are gravitating towards our campaign because we have a unique product that we are offering, right? And it all started when I launched my campaign last June. We spent about 4 months on the road doing a listen tour, south side, west side, east side, downtown, north side of San Antonio, but being intentional about listening. When I showed up, John and Jessica, people were skeptical. Another politician.
Not only that, but a techie.
A techie.
I like a millennial techie. I don't know. Are you a millennial?
Yeah. I'm probably like, I'm ready to have my avocado toast right now after this interview. Yeah.
And a foodie to boot.
So I think people were skeptical because, it was early on the cycle, but also usually you have a politician show up or a candidate, and it's just them talking at them, at the public. And in this scenario, I gave the microphone back to people, and it was where the magic happened. And we collected so much data, so much information, and I also had the 311 data, which is public, right? And I overlaid the 311 data, that is qualitative data, with all the stories that I heard from the community. And so then that led us to create our policy framework that we call Plan 210. For those listening, it's called plan210.com. That's the website. And we're focusing on 3 areas: infrastructure, economic development, and public safety. Public safety, crime, animal care services, health, for economic development, childcare being a top priority that we heard from the community, that I know is a trending issue, not just in San Antonio, but across the U.S. Workforce development and job creation, focusing on 4 emerging trends in our economy, which is cybersecurity. We are known as a cyber hub in the United States. Bioscience, which I know that San Diego is trending when you talk about bioscience, which is beautiful. And by the way, when we talk about cybersecurity and we talk about military city USA, San Diego and San Antonio both share that background. Navy, such a strong presence here in San Diego. The Air Force, such a strong presence in San Antonio's economy, right? So we had that big similarity, right? Aerospace and in advanced manufacturing for the workforce development strategy that we have. And of course, small business support. When we talk about infrastructure, sustainability, how can we build more resiliencies against climate change? It's happening, right? And when you look at the East Coast, flooding and sea level rising is impacting all of the East Coast. In Texas, Jessica, we're just talking about how the heat is impacting cities.
Yeah.
Like San Antonio becomes really hot in the summer. I know you guys here in San Diego have beautiful weather year round,
but it gets up to like 80 here. Is that pretty hot? 80?
It is winter time for us, you know, and housing, right? So that makes up our Plan 210, and that's our unique value proposition, and that's how we differentiate ourselves from the rest of the pack. And I think that the use of digital media is very powerful. We have the largest digital footprint. You can look me up on Instagram, social media, Beto Altamirano, and you'll see that we're using storytelling and documentary style type of clips where people get to see the behind the scenes of the campaign and get to engage with me in such a way that is organic. Because people are like, well, you're too polished, Beto, or whatever. Because sometimes, and by the way, John, you look very polished yourself, you know?
Thank you.
But sometimes people don't get to see the real John, right?
Right, yeah.
And so these podcasts are helping you do that, right? Because, I mean, you're a pretty cool guy, and Jessica, yourself as well. But how do you tell that story in such a way that the audience gets to know the true you? And so that's also something that we're working on, so that it's more of an approachable and digestible content creation strategy.
How much of your campaign content or, you know, public appearances or, you know, stuff, you know, on your sites is in Spanish versus English? Like, how do you walk that tightrope?
Yeah, so I need to create more Spanish content. I think it's like almost like 85% English, right, and 50% Spanish. Yeah, it's something that I need to work on. You know, sometimes just getting in the motions, right, and I do everything in English.
Yeah, of course.
Pero me encanta hablar español.
Uh-huh.
Y cuando la gente me habla en español, yo les contesto en español en la campaña. Soy completamente bilingüe y eso lo uso a mi favor, ¿no?
¿Cuántos de los candidatos de los 20 hablan español?
Yo me imagino que unos 5, quizás, pero así, un español propio, yo creo que menos, no sé. Y a ver, mi mamá era maestra, ¿no? Entonces, desde niño, me tenía en chinga hablando español y inglés. Y era de que, a ver, mijito, aquí en la casa hablas español.
Sí, sí.
Y ya con tus amigos en la escuela en inglés. Y no me gustaba. O sea, estaba, ¿cómo? O sea, ¿por qué? Y ahora le agradezco, ¿no? Porque es algo que uso a mi favor en todo lo que hago. Y es una experiencia totalmente deliciosa, ¿no? Poder pensar en vez en español and then switch it, you know, to English. And it's just, I don't know, I love it.
Yeah, and that's huge. 5 out of 20 candidates in San Antonio.
Yeah.
So, yeah, definitely competitive advantage.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, you know, one has to wonder, you know, you're on this pathway to, you know, probably making good money, you know, tons of opportunities in, you know, sort of a commercial space. Like, why does a person like that decide, oh, I want to be a mayor? And of all things, like, you know, I could, like, I would talk to my friend Sam about the same thing.
Yeah.
You know, local politics. Like, why this job?
Yeah, John, that's a great question. And look, my background was always in government and politics. You know, I spent time working in the Texas House of Representatives, in the U.S. Senate for John Kerry, for Barack Obama under the United States Trade Representative Office with Ron Kirk. It was always a trajectory of policy. But I also knew that I wanted to build things. I wanted to have a career in business or in the legal world. I chose business because I was in love with creating products, services, creating something from scratch. So I jumped into this world of the private sector and became a technology entrepreneur. Which, by the way, right now we hear all about like the whole Elon Musk thing and how other entrepreneurs are being branded with the similar concept of being similar to Elon Musk, and that's bullshit. Excuse my language. I think there's a lot of great tech entrepreneurs and techies out there that really care about their communities, really care about social impact, and we should not brand the technology sector as being one way, right? What is happening is complicated, right? But there's a lot of good people in the technology sector that really care about their communities, right? I just want to make it that parenthesis because I think it's important to defend a lot of hardworking technology professionals in the United States that care about their country, that care about their cities. And for me, it was always that. It was caring about my city. When I started my tech company, Irys, it was with that product for 311. So I've always been obsessed also with cities and the development of cities and how they impact our everyday lives and, how we navigate our cities. And San Antonio has given me so much opportunity. The opportunity to start my family, to find lifelong friends, to start a company from scratch and scale it. And that's the same opportunity I want to give back to my city. But we're also facing generational challenges in San Antonio that require generational change. And that inspires me. That inspires me to act, not stay on the sidelines. And because my passion was always public service, why not explore it? So after I got my MPA from the Harvard Kennedy School, I formulated this theory of change, of how we could advance progress in San Antonio. Came back energized. I had been serving at Port San Antonio for over 5 years on economic development strategies and bringing businesses like Boeing and other giants like Leidos to San Antonio. And also spent time working at Launch SA. Launch San Antonio helps hundreds and thousands of small businesses get off the ground. And so I was always so involved in my community and had that background, stabilized my company. And I said, why not? Time is of the essence, right? And time flies. And, why not use my energy and my youth to give back, to get out there every day, roll up my sleeves, and really make an impact, a lasting impact. Because this is my city, right? And I know that in San Diego, the residents of San Diego feel the same pride, right? John, you chose this city. I mean, you're here. Jessica, you're here. And I know you both take pride in San Diego. And that's why you're doing this podcast. And that's why you go out there every day, you fight for your clients, right? It's that same pride that I have, but I'm channeling that through public service or with the aspiration to serve as mayor. And so that gets me excited, about the possibilities and what we can do in San Antonio. But it's not just San Antonio. It's connecting all of the dots in the South Texas region. Being a South Texas native, being from the Rio Grande Valley, and being a product of that region, I bring that expertise also to the mayor's office, where I can build that consensus that I spoke earlier about between all the cities in South Texas and make magic happen, bring more investment, and act as a proper region.
You talked about generational challenges, and it brings forth the word generation. You're a younger candidate, 35 years old that we talked about. What is the sort of age demographics of that community and in particular the voters of San Antonio, and how does that kind of impact your campaign or messaging?
Yeah, the average age in San Antonio is like early 30s. I think it was like 32, 33. In Texas as well. It's like 30.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
How did that happen?
I mean, you have a people moving to Texas in general, right, across the U.S. after COVID. You also have a strong hardworking immigrant community in Texas. And yeah, you have that growth happening already, right? However, to your question, you have usually voters in Texas, and I know across the U.S., tend to be older. That's the reality. There's something to be said about maybe thinking about the legacy, thinking about who people are choosing to stay in positions of influence as they continue to age and they want to lead their cities better. Not sure why, but I think it's mostly that, right? In terms of why you have older people voting. And that's challenging, right? I mean, we need to have young people stepping up and being part of the civic life. So I would say the makeup of San Antonio is a mix, but mostly the older demographic is the one that always consistently comes out and vote. But that happens across the country, not just San Antonio.
Right. Well, I mean, oftentimes they're voting for their grandparents who, they may not share a lot of, commonality with, maybe a person like you might, get them a little more excited, don't you think?
Absolutely. I mean, and we just had our campaign HQ launch one Saturday, and we saw a lot of young people come out. And I have, over 25 organizers and volunteers that are in college or just graduated from college. And that's amazing, right? I mean, yes, there's a way to engage the youth. And I think it has to be with a message that resonates with them. But again, we're talking about this narrative of choosing San Antonio first. And I think there's this a renaissance happening in San Antonio. The San Antonio story is a very wild story, right? And it's a city of pioneers. And it's a city of contributors, not necessarily consumers. You move to San Antonio to shape the city and the future of the city. And in the process, you shape your career. That's what that city offers you, There's a lot of room for growth. And I feel like young people feel attracted to that narrative, moving to a place where, they can build their lives and have an influence in the outcomes of that city. And I think San Diego also experiences that, right? And that's a beautiful thing, right? A city where you can still shape the future of its city. I feel San Diego still has a lot of room for growth. And you have a lot of young people choosing to stay in San Diego, right? Because of the opportunities that the city is presenting, right? In areas like bioscience, for example. Or for example, I just learned that San Diego has 150 craft breweries. And I'm a big fan of beer.
Yeah.
Right? So that means that there's a trending movement in San Diego of young people doubling down on staying and building their lives here. Right. And that's the same spirit that we are seeing right now in San Antonio. It's no longer just Austin, but now it's becoming San Antonio. And one thing to explore is what we call the mega region between San Antonio and Austin as well. It's just going to grow to 8.5 million people in the next 25 years. So the question now whether this region is also going to grow is how do we prepare for that growth? And I know you all are also experiencing that between San Diego all the way to LA, which you have a lot of people moving into this part of the world, mostly because you have good weather.
It's a good place, yeah.
I do economics,
But a lot of our residents are leaving to move to Texas.
I know. And look, I want them to move to San Antonio, right? We're open for business, right?
Yeah.
Our story is a wild story. It's a city of pioneers. If you are interested in moving to a city where you can shape the future of the city, shape your careers, San Antonio is open for that. But hey, you got to be ready for the weather, right? And Californians, I promise you have beautiful weather at San Antonio. It can get a little bit hot in the summer, but we have about 8 months of really fair weather, right? And so that's the other thing. You have a lot of winter Texans. That's what they call them. People from the north part of the United States that move to South Texas. El Paso too experiences that, Jessica, and it's because the weather year round is fair. It's not. It's hot in the summer, but outside of that, it's going. Yeah.
I know your focus now is on, the South Texas, Rio Grande, San Antonio, Corpus Christi, Brownsville. We had on about a month or 2 months ago, the current Attorney General of New Mexico, this guy, Raul Torres.
Yeah, know him.
Yeah, he was a super impressive guy. What do you think about, as we go forward, that kind of regional linking between, the Southwest states of Texas and New Mexico and Arizona, and how do you see all that?
Yeah, I think it's fascinating, right? And I just don't think of just Southwest, but it's also like North Mexico, right?
Yeah, very much.
When I talk about the South Texas Triangle, I usually include all the way to Tamaulipas and Nuevo León, which you have 35 million people in total. If you consider Nuevo León, Tamaulipas, all the way to Monterrey. Yeah. Right now, with nearshoring, right? There's a lot of momentum happening in Monterrey, and there's so much business to be made between United States and Mexico. And I know we have this narrative right now on mainstream media, from the current administration that is putting a damper right on the high spirits that we had just 2 years ago, right? In terms of trade with Mexico, especially on the nearshoring concept. But I think the relationship between, because I'm an optimist in this scenario, the relationship between Mexico and also Canada, right, are strong. They are strong allies, and we need to continue nurturing that. And wow, yes, the tariffs are being presented. I'm not sure that strategy is going to work out in the end, right? It's just so complicated. And when we talk about tariffs, we got to be, we got to be cautious because it impacts the upstream and the downstream of product and services and outcomes, and they stay forever. And you know this, right? I mean, tariffs don't, I mean, it's hard to change that, right? That narrative. And so those policies are policies that we got to move slow with. And I hope that this administration reconsiders a lot of this like fast movement in terms of the trade policies that they are introducing. I say all of this, right, because the Southwest region, to your question, John, really enjoys, that relationship with North Mexico. And we all enjoy a cultural, it's like we have almost the same identity in terms of the experiences that we have being states near the river. And that's something that we need to celebrate. And that's such a rich experience from California all the way to Texas that makes us, in a way, more connected as a region than any other region. And it's the strong Latino and Mexican American experience as well that we need to continue to celebrate. I think the challenge is that sometimes we don't speak to each other that often as states. We don't collaborate with each other that often. And I wish we could see more of that. And I think that's why I'm in San Diego. I'm in San Diego because at CIES, San Antonio, San Diego, we have so many similarities, right? From the emerging trends in the economy, from the military background, from being a city, San Antonio close to the border, San Diego basically on the border. The culture as well, right? Having a strong Mexican American presence is something that we need to celebrate. And as CIES, I want to see leaders engaging with each other more often and having the opportunity to exchange ideas, do business with each other, and maybe host committees, right? Where we can bring more people from San Antonio, San Diego to learn about the business practices and the opportunities and vice versa. And that's something that I want to start implementing with San Antonio. Task forces where we travel to different cities and we do an exchange of ideas, right? Not just like economic development. Yeah. Oh, no. I mean, because of course, every city has a robust economic development infrastructure or instrument. I'm talking more about on the culture, on the arts, on the emerging trends of our economy. And you had a lot of young people that would appreciate that as well.
And so I think that kind of goes to one of the questions I had, which was, for our listeners and viewers of this podcast that are, we're looking forward to this election in May, why should, listeners or viewers or thought leaders outside of San Antonio, Texas, care about your campaign and support it? And I think you just spoke to that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, for those that are interested in traveling from California to Texas or are curious about Texas, I think my proposition as a candidate who's running for mayor is that San Antonio is open for business, but we're also open to learning about other cities, other people, and welcoming you, right? We want to be a welcoming city. And at the helm, as leader of San Antonio, I will do that. I will welcome people from our beautiful city here in San Diego. And I think that's what it's all about, right? But I will also add to this, right? And it's that there's an opportunity right now for more young people across the country to step up. And that's what we're doing with my campaign. So if we receive support, from a financial donation to a follow on social media or you're betting on the future as well. That's what my campaign is about. And I'm coming in from a perspective of being someone with policies that might be centrist to some degree, but it's about being pragmatic right now. And I think that's what we need more than ever in our politics. I think the extreme left and extreme right sometimes tend to be really loud, and the center disappears. And I think as a mayor and someone running for office in local San Antonio, you don't run with a party. So I'm running essentially as an independent, which is really interesting and complicated. Everyone is. All the 20 candidates are. But we are introducing policies, right, that are progressive. We're introducing policies in some regard that are fiscally conservative. We are really playing in the middle right now. And a lot of young people are excited about that too.
Yeah.
Because we are relentlessly being pragmatic on how to find solutions for San Antonio. And there's something to be said about that across the United States that we want to see more of, right? And so it's about getting things done. And so for anyone listening to this podcast, I welcome you to visit San Antonio. And of course, when elected, not if, I welcome you to have coffee with me in San Antonio.
Hello.
And so, where you talked about if they donate to the campaign, follow, like where can they find you?
Yeah, my website is betoformayor.com. There it seems all right. That's betoformayor.com. And of course, my policy platform, which is embedded into the website, is plan210.com. But you can also Google me, Beto Altamirano, Altamirano. And you can find me on Instagram. We're very active. Again, you're going to see a lot of really cool videos, documentary style videos, and on Twitter as well, and Facebook. So I'm all over social media, and follow our journey. And John, thank you for the opportunity to be on this podcast. Jessica, thank you as well for the opportunity and the questions. John, you have a very inspiring trajectory. And my generation stands on your shoulders, and I just want to acknowledge that. And the work that you continue to do, it's important because it continues to inspire young people, and we need more champions like you.
I appreciate those kind words. Thank you. The honor is all ours. A final question. I have one final question, wrap-up question. You have one final question for the next mayor of San Antonio.
Well, you convinced me to go to San Antonio. Okay, cool. I haven't been in over 10 years. If I were to go, what restaurant do I need to go?
Oh, wow.
There's a big competition over there.
Yeah.
So in El Paso, we say it's Tex-Mex. So what's a good restaurant I can go to?
Yeah, so you have Garcia's. We just made the Michelin Guide.
Wow.
The recommendation Michelin Guide. I mean, not with a star, but it's part of the recommendations from the Michelin Guide. But you have Leche Dire, which is an incredible Peruvian restaurant. It's Southtown San Antonio. You have a bunch of restaurants, Southerly as well. But I would say Clementine is another of my favorite restaurants. I'm giving you a bunch, right?
I love it.
I know.
Because you don't want to lose any votes.
Yeah, I know. No, there's just so many restaurants in San Antonio. But also, I mean, one thing about Texas is that, we love Whataburger, right? So if you're in Texas, you need to have one of those. And we have a lot of craft breweries as well. But a typical day in San Antonio is like you hang out maybe, but you go to the Riverwalk and you grab a beer somewhere. Then you visit one of those restaurants I mentioned for lunch. You visit Southtown King William, which is a historic neighborhood. You can kayak on the Riverwalk. Now you can do that.
I did, yeah.
Yeah, and then you can spend the afternoon at the Pearl Brewery, which is a beautiful new development that connects the Riverwalk from downtown all the way to Midtown, and you can walk all of that. Get to the Pearl Brewery, have lunch there, enjoy the scenery, maybe catch a Spurs game in the evening.
Yeah.
Right? Oh, that's a good deal. So there's a lot to do. Yeah, and our airport is friendly as well, and San Antonio is still affordable, right? So you have a great time and on budget and enjoy gastronomy and a good nightlife as well.
It's a great city.
Well, thank you for that. And so here's my wrap-up question. I'm stealing it from a podcast that I've started listening to lately. Have you heard of the Cracks podcast with Oso Traba?
¿Cómo no? Por supuesto.
Por supuesto que sí. Y al final de cada episodio dice o pregunta a sus guests, he says, if you could write words in the sky, in the clouds, for millions to see, to be inspired and to last forever, what words would you choose to write?
Believe in yourself.
Believe in yourself.
I like
You have to believe in yourself before anyone else believes in you. So believe in yourself.
Love it. Well, thank you so much for being a guest. It's an honor. We look forward to supporting your campaign. Look forward to getting out to San Antonio. We'll just come out there and drink a bunch of beer and do our kayaks.
And we'll do cafecito. And by the way, I just acquired a coffee shop. So
Oh my gosh.
anyone who's in town at my coffee shop is Shotgun Coffee.
shotgun.
Yeah.
I love it. Okay, very good.
Like the shotgun houses, right? And
We'll go there too.
I'll host you there. All right.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for taking time out of your very busy schedule to spend time with us. It was an honor. We look forward to seeing the future of San Antonio and all things beyond that. This concludes this episode of The Latino. We hope you enjoyed it. If you like it, please share and subscribe. Until next time, signing off. And let's keep in mind that important connection between law, legal, political, and governmental leaders and our Latino communities. Thank you so much.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Jessica.
Thank you for listening to the Latino podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.